coronavirus knocks out a staple of a Michigan autumn. College football hits the shelf. This morning, we'll get our bearings on the virus fight from Dr. Francis Collins, the head of the National Institutes of Health. And the Democratic team is set. Kamala Harris becomes Joe Biden's running mate as the Democrats prepare for this week's Democratic National Convention, just without all that convening. Today is Sunday, August 16th, 2020, and this is Flashpoint.
Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. We are deep into election season now. The Democratic National Convention starts tomorrow, and a week later, the Republicans get their turn, and nothing looks at all familiar. The hats, the buttons, the signs, the confetti and balloons. This year, those will be about as virtual as everything else. Actually, we have had virtual confetti around. Ta-da! But in a way, the strange settings will be a perfect backdrop given the most pressing issue of the campaign, and that's the pandemic that continues to march through American life. We're going to talk to several Democrats this morning now that they have their vice presidential candidate in Kamala Harris, and notably not Governor Gretchen Whitmer. But up first, we're going to talk about the pandemic with one of the leaders of the fight. Francis Collins last appeared on Flashpoint to talk about leading the Human Genome Project. This morning, he comes back as the head of the National Institutes of Health, and he's up first today on Flashpoint. All right, my first guest this morning built a worldwide reputation as a gene hunter at the University of Michigan. He led the revolutionary Human Genome Project, and now he's the director of the National Institutes of Health. So you can imagine what his life is like right now. It is good to have with us Dr. Francis Collins back again on Flashpoint. Dr. Collins, thank you so much for your time today.
I'm glad to be with you. Hello, Detroit.
Yeah, good to have you back in our neck of the woods. I want to start with the announcement that we got this past week, because you said about a month ago you were getting pretty optimistic about the progress we'd been making toward a vaccine, and then we get an announcement this past week that Russia believes that they are standing right at the cusp of solving this problem. Obviously, Vladimir Putin inspires very little confidence and trust in what he says, but I also don't want to negate the medical and scientific footprint that Russia has had in the past. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, Russia has developed a vaccine based upon an adenovirus vector, kind of similar to a couple of the vaccines that we're supporting right now in the U.S. But what Russia did was basically they did that first phase 1 trial, and we did a bunch of those back several months ago, and then they decided they were done, and they were going to go ahead and start distributing this. Most of us who've looked carefully at the way in which trials should be done over decades would say there's some risk there. The reason we do phase 2 and phase 3 trials is to be sure that a vaccine is really safe and it really works. And the amount of data that's been generated so far with the Russia vaccine would not give you that confidence. Yeah. I would not volunteer for this vaccine. I think by trying to say they're first, well, they're not really first in the sense of a vaccine that's gone through the usual hoops.
Well, some have suggested, though, Dr. Collins, that we've got our own Russia problem developing in that we are trying to push ahead of anything that reasonable scientists believe would be the proper way to go about this. When we look at the measles vaccine taking 4 years and all of a sudden we want to do one in one, are we guilty of maybe pushing the limit ourselves so far?
I'm glad you're asking, because I think I can be very reassuring about that. How is it that we're able, with cautious optimism, to say that we're likely to have one or maybe more than one vaccines that are safe and effective by the end of this year? How have we managed to telescope those timetables? Part of it is the new technologies of how you actually build a vaccine that make it possible when you've just seen the genome sequence of the virus to be getting into a phase 1 trial in just about 65 days. We didn't have the ability to do that before. But a lot of it is just basically looking at those long, slow gaps in between phases, which used to take months or even a year, and planning ahead so that those gaps, which don't really accomplish anything as far as safety and efficacy, get very much shortened. But I want to promise you and everybody listening, the phase 3 trials that we're running on the current vaccines, about 6 of them, are just as rigorous as anything we have ever done. And if FDA tells us sometime late in 2020 that vaccine is now proven safe and effective, they will mean it, and it'll be based upon the most rigorous data. No corners will be cut, I promise. I'm a scientist, I'm a physician, I'm not a politician. I don't care about the timetables. I just want this done right, and it will be.
We certainly hope so. A lot of people, I think, forget the novel portion of the novel coronavirus phrase or term. We're still learning. It's only been around with us now for about 8 months. We still are learning about it every day. What do we know about it now that we didn't know even a couple of months ago that is changing our approach?
Well, I think we are learning that it is has the ability to infect people without causing symptoms. At least 40% of people who get infected with this virus don't have any symptoms, and yet they are capable of spreading it to others around them. That's very different than almost any respiratory virus we've ever dealt with. And it makes all the more important this recommendation that we should all be wearing these cloth face coverings when we leave the home, because I might be that person who's infected and not know it. And I don't want to infect you if I'm out there in the grocery store or somewhere else out in public.
The politicization of the mask seems to me a bizarre place that we've arrived. And yet if you go back to Dr. Fauci's comments about masks very early on, there's been changing advice as we've moved through this, going back to the fact that it's novel and we keep learning. But that's kind of proved problematic, hasn't it, sometimes?
It has, but it frankly reflects our knowledge of the science, which has accumulated over time. We did not realize back in February and March how readily this could be transmitted by people with no symptoms. So the idea of wearing masks didn't seem that important unless you were sick. Now we know differently. So the reason the recommendations have changed is because of that new knowledge. It is truly tragic, though, that this has become a political issue. Public health should never get into that space. And so I'm hoping if people are listening and wondering, wait a minute, well, why is this recommendation about masks coming from this doctor? Is that because he's part of the deep state? No, it's because I'm a public health guy. I want to save lives. We've lost 160,000 lives in the U.S. We could lose fewer if we all put on our masks and stuck to that as a really faithful commitment. And that goes for young people, too.
Well, one recommendation that has been debated quite a bit here in the state of Michigan, not even recommendation, but I guess a system that was put in place, seemed to many to be flawed from the beginning, and that was putting COVID patients into nursing homes. Some states have moved off of that, notably New York. Governor Whitmer has remained rather steadfast in believing that that's the right place to put some of these patients, even though she wants them separated inside a facility. But does that make any sense to you scientifically?
Well, certainly we know that nursing homes are a place where there has been terrible loss of life from this virus. And so we should be doing everything we can to prevent that from happening over and over again. One of my jobs is to try to work on better diagnostic tests so that nursing homes have access to quick testing so that every shift worker who shows up gets tested to make sure they're not bringing the virus into the place. I don't know Michigan's situation in terms of actually placing patients in nursing homes on purpose. If that were to be done, they would have to be absolutely strictly isolated from the uninfected people in the same facility, or this would be the worst possible thing to do.
It remains very, very complex, I know. Since we've seen so much loss there, we've also seen so much heartbreak there. But I want to ask you then about, as we try to move forward now, we still seem to be lacking what feels like to many to be a cohesive national strategy. This is very complicated as we watch now trying to reopen schools, and everybody moving at a different speed. And especially given the problems that we have with testing right now. If I have to wait a week or two for test results, it seems to me I might as well not have been tested at all.
I agree. The very long delay in test results simply undercuts the whole value of having the information, because if you're positive, you should be immediately isolated and not out there infecting other people. I will tell you, because I watch these turnaround times every day as part of the team here, that it's getting better and that you will see, I think, fewer and fewer examples of those very long delays. People should be able to get results back in 2 or at most 3 days and starting right about now. But there will be outliers, things where the sample got lost. Again, my goal would be, and this is something we're working on at NIH, is to have most testing done as point of care, where basically the testing apparatus is right there. You get the results within a half hour. You know whether you're positive or negative. That's the ultimate solution. That's just very challenging technology to develop and implement and then manufacture and distribute to all the places that need it. But we're working on it hard.
Lastly, this is a difficult question to ask of you to probably grade your own performance thus far. But when we look at the American response, and we've had so many more cases and so much death compared to the rest of the world in the way that they've handled it, how would, and the NIH is part of this, the CDC, our entire public health apparatus, how would you grade how we've handled this over the last 7 months?
Well, I think the real gradation is to look and see what's happened as far as hospitalizations and deaths. And in that regard, America has not done well. Our deaths as a proportion of our population does not look as if you would hope it would for such a far advanced country. Yeah, there have been missteps along the way. I would say, though, the way to turn this around is for all of us as Americans to say, this isn't just about the government doing the right thing. It's about all of us choosing to do the right thing. Recent estimates would say if everybody today decided, wear the masks, do the 6-foot distancing, don't gather inside, use hand washing and hand sanitizer, we could reduce the number of deaths by December by 70,000. Now, can't we all get together and do that?
70,000 lives seem worth saving, no doubt about it. Yeah. Dr. Collins, thank you so much. Great to have you again back on the program. And put us in your date book, because I would love to catch up with you on where you feel like everything we learned about genetics has led us to today. That's a whole other program for you and I.
Oh, yeah. It's all connected, though. So, yeah, that'd be fun to talk about.
Actually, right. Dr. Francis Collins, thank you so much. Head of the National Institutes of Health. We'll take a quick break. We'll continue. This is Flashpoint on Local 4.